We are now jumping from my least favorite special of the lot to my favorite, because Wild Blue Yonder is kind of a banger. This is the episode that convinced me that under the right circumstances, Russell still has it in him. It is a genuinely good time from start to finish. There are no contrivances, no retcons, no lore dumps. Mostly.
I saw it. The flux.
No, nothing other than pure, uncut Doctor Who wackiness.
How many knees?
2.
2 in total? Or 2 on each leg?
The setting of this episode is a remote spaceship at the edge of reality itself. The spaceship seems to be completely abandoned apart from a suspiciously slow robot.
Stay there, Jimbo. No sudden moves.
And can I just say, I've always loved Who episodes that take place in a quiet, abandoned location, now completely deserted. It gives the episode a slightly eerie, melancholy feel, especially when the writers feed us little tidbits about what caused its downfall.
Those are the colonists.
The colonists aren't here yet. This is the setup team. The skeleton crew.
Why did the...
I also think this setting makes for an especially good mystery. Why is there nobody here? And this episode takes full advantage of its mysterious setting. The entire episode essentially revolves around the Doctor and Donna slowly learning more about the base they've crash landed in, why it's empty, and how this information can help them defeat the Not Things. Yes, this episode complements its mysterious setting with even more mysterious antagonists.
Joel.
The Not Things do not originate from our universe.
Did you come from outside?
We came from the nothing.
We are not things.
All they know of our world is what they can observe, and so they try to copy it, to limited success.
The arms are so very difficult.
So we have an abandoned space station, a fake Doctor, a fake Donna, and a mysterious lack of crew members. I mean, there's potential for action, hijinks, fake outs, and a compelling mystery at the heart of it all. And does this episode deliver on its potential? Honestly, yes. Yes, it does. This episode was unapologetically weird and stands out from the rest of the specials like a sore thumb, and I love it for that. After all, being weird and fantastical is what sets Doctor Who apart from other sci-fis, so in my opinion, it should own it. Everything I would have wanted to see from this setting is realized, especially the fake-outs. The episode really milks that.
Doctor, come back! She's not me! You've got the wrong one!
Russell really takes advantage of the fact that the antagonists look exactly like the protagonists. The best example of this is how they're introduced. It'll take the audience a few minutes to notice that something's off. You see, an episode written by a less competent Doctor Who writer probably would have shown us the Not Things scheming before they ever encountered the Doctor and Donna, thus depriving the audience of their surprise reveal. One thing Chris Chibnall liked to do as head writer a lot was show the villain just sort of farting around before they ever interacted with the Doctor to provide the audience with necessary background information. And whilst I understand why he did that, I think it was kind of a mistake. Take a look at Flux. We follow around the villains of that episode for a while before they even come face to face with the Doctor. But it doesn't really add much to the episode, it just kind of muddles an already overly confused narrative, and sprinkles in some cringe for good measure.
Trick or treat, Doctor.
This means that we frequently know more about the villain than the Doctor does upon their first meeting, which means we're not really learning about them as a character through the Doctor's eyes. In this episode, Russell takes a different approach. He only allows the audience to know as much as the Doctor does, so as the Doctor pieces together the mystery, so does the audience, and I think this approach works a lot better, especially in a setting like this, where it can be used to generate real surprise and tension. I also love how the Doctor uses the Not Things lack of knowledge of our world as a weapon against them, especially when he tricks them into thinking superstitions are real in this universe by drawing a line of salt.
In our universe, it is said that vampires, demons, and ghosts cannot cross a line of salt until they've counted every single grain.
You're lying. No more towards me.
Stop copying and make your own minds up!
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
This episode is bonkers, and the mystery of what happened to the ship's pilot is at the center of it all. Solving that mystery ends up being key to defeating the Not Things, tying everything together nicely. Long ago, the ship's captain sacrificed herself so that the Not Things wouldn't be able to finish the process of duplicating her. In doing so, she left nothing behind but a robot, and her reasoning for doing so is actually kind of genius. The Not Things are receptive to any observable stimuli or change in their environment, making them extremely difficult to kill, as they'll learn how you think think and anticipate your moves before you even make them. So by leaving nothing behind but an incredibly rudimentary and slow robot, and giving it the command to self-destruct the station, the captain was able to outsmart them by leaving her final move in plain sight. After all, they only know how to copy people, they can't account for an inanimate object that hardly ever moves. This is what I think Doctor Who episodes should be: wacky, conceptual, experimental, and at their core, a genuinely interesting mystery.
At the edge of creation.
That's an airlock door that opened 3 years ago and closed.
Throw in a running joke where the Doctor and Donna accidentally pervert human history, changing the word gravity to mavity.
The gravity of the situation.
What was that delightful word? Mavity.
Caught in the gravity field.
Caught in the what?
Mavity field.
And the Doctor's reunion with Wilf after all this time.
Hello, me old soldier.
I never thought I'd see you again.
And you have yourself a truly peak episode. And on the topic of Wilf, anyone who's following the development of these specials would be aware that he was originally going to play a larger role, but as fate would have it, he tragically passed away after only filming this scene, which makes it one of the most haunting but also touching scenes in all of the specials.
We wanted to do more because we love him. He wasn't well enough to do more, but that one scene he completed fills me with absolute joy. It's pure Bernard. I am so glad we got to shoot that because it's one of the great joys of my entire life that I got to work with that man. I love him.
And on the topic of revisions, this episode seems to have been heavily altered from its original state. Just from a glance at the original version of the script, back when it was titled The Bridge, we can see that there was a scene near the opening, likely of the Doctor and Donna in the TARDIS, that was later cut. And I think that was for the best because that would have really bogged down the pacing. In fact, this script is the only one of the four that I would say truly feels polished. Now, even after dishing out all of this praise, I must admit, this episode still isn't perfect. Some of the logic is a tad convenient, and the VFX does struggle to keep up in places.
Auntie Iris, Mummy and Daddy. Why does he travel with someone as stupid as you?
I think there's a big missed opportunity in this episode's narrative, that being that this should have been where the TARDIS got its new interior, not at the end of the last episode. Personally, I found it a bit weird when the TARDIS just changed spontaneously at the end of the Star Beast. I know that it's become a tradition for every new Doctor to have a new TARDIS.
Oh, you sexy thing.
But in universe, there's no actual reason provided for why it changed. Especially if we're supposed to believe that the 14th Doctor has been traveling around for a little bit before the episode takes place, which I'm still kind of unclear on. Every time the TARDIS has gotten a new interior in the past, it was because it was destroyed. And the TARDIS being destroyed is a key part of this episode's story. I think it would have worked really well if, at the end of the episode, when the Doctor and Donna are reunited with the TARDIS, it's rebuilt itself. Because as it's currently written, it feels like the TARDIS only changes because it's self-aware that there's a new showrunner in town. Dare I say it, but I think this is one case where Chibnall actually did it better. At the beginning of his era, the TARDIS is destroyed in the most epic fashion yet, and the Doctor is separated from it for 2 whole episodes before eventually being reunited with it, which really draws out a viewer's anticipation and makes the reveal feel bigger and more meaningful. Yes, I did just use something Chibnall wrote for Doctor Who as an example of something I like. Don't get used to it. On the topic of Chibnall, I'm also really not a fan of how this episode doubles down on the Timeless Child retcon. I think everyone was kind of hoping RTD would ignore it, like how everyone ignored the movie's retcon that made the Doctor half human. Even Chibnall said that he expected RTD to ignore it, but he didn't.
You don't know where you're from.
How'd you know that?
The positive aspect to these scenes is that, at the very least, they add some much-needed emotional weight to certain Chibnall plotlines like the Flux. If you watched Series 13, firstly, my condolences, but secondly, you'll remember that the Doctor accidentally set a chain of events in motion that destroyed, like, half of the entire known universe. It was called the Flux, and to a large extent it was the Doctor's fault.
The flux wasn't an accident. It wasn't a naturally occurring event. It was made, it was placed because of you.
And yet, she seemed surprisingly unfazed by this fact. You'd think something like this would bear massive emotional consequences for someone as self-conscious as the Doctor. I mean, you all remember how long it took him to get over the Time War, and that was less people dying than the Flux. And yet, we barely get any indication that this has affected the Doctor on a deep level. One second we're getting scenes of millions of people getting erased from existence, and the next we're getting the Doctor wisecracking.
Our savior.
always wondered what time would look like. Huh. Way to play to your ego. Nice look. I fancy that coat. Oh, I get how that ego appeal thing works now.
It would be one thing if we saw how this actually affected the Doctor, and there was some implication that this humor was just a way of deflecting the trauma, but that's not really in there. The last few scenes of Flux have such a happy-go-lucky, chummy tone to them, you wouldn't think that half the universe just got erased. I guess someone didn't grasp the mavity of the situation. There was a brief scene of emotional reflection at the end, but it doesn't have to do with the Flux, but rather the Doctor contemplating her past and whether or not she should try to find out more about it.
I was looking for information about me.
It's nice to see RTD actually trying to retroactively fix certain mistakes Chibnall made by showing how the Flux impacted the Doctor emotionally.
It destroyed half the universe because of me.
So yes, I keep running, of course I do. How am I supposed to look back on that?
It wasn't your fault.
I know!
But at the same time, personally, I think the best approach to dealing with the aftermath of Chibnall era plotlines is to just retcon them out of existence. But that's just me. Now, this episode was intentionally kept secret before transmission. Clips of it in the trailers and cast lists had a redacted text pasted over them, leading a lot of people to think that it was going to feature previous Doctors or companions, and I think a lot of people ended up being disappointed that it didn't.
I think everyone's expecting Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi and the ghost of William Hartnell riding on the back of the Garm. They arrive in a spaceship and they meet evil versions of themselves. That's it. That's it. This is so simple. That's why I kept it secret, but I wonder if that's had an unfortunate effect and made it disappointingly simple on its broadcast.
And that's a shame, because on its own merit, this is a pretty good episode. This episode wasn't trying to do anything big or transformative. The episode preoccupied with that is